3 nights ago, I had an unsettling experience at St. Augustine's Hospital. I've been a night nurse there for over 5 years. The nights are usually quiet. I'm alone with the buzz of machines and the dim light in the halls. It's south an old place and it can feel a bit creepy. There are faded photographs on the walls, patients from long ago. But I never thought anything strange would happen to me. After my rounds that night, I settled at the nurse's station. It was peaceful, but the silence felt heavy. Then I heard it light tapping. It came from one of the empty patient rooms. I thought it might be a pipe or a janitor. A chill ran down my spine. At first, I brushed it off, but I felt that I wasn't alone. I moved closer to the room, peeking inside. Nothing was there. Just silence. I turned to walk away, but the tapping continued. The next night was similar. Quiet again. I checked in on my patients. They seemed restless, like they sensed something off. As I walked past the same room, a cold draft swept through the air, and the lights flickered above me. My heart raced. I tried to ignore it. A patient suddenly called out. They said they saw a figure moving in the shadows of that room. I thought they must be imagining things, but my unease grew. On the third night, I was overwhelmed by curiosity. I steeled myself and approached the door of that room again. My hand hovered over the handle. It felt thick in the air, like it was charged. I opened the door, half expecting something to jump out at me. Just silence met me. A chill swept past me, and I shivered. I started to leave, but then I caught my reflection in the glass panel beside the station. It was strange, like I was moving slightly ahead of the reflection. That made my skin crawl. Later, I dug into the hospital's history. I found records of tragic incidents. Patients who died in that very room. Each story turned my stomach. They made me wonder if they were true. My colleagues laughed off my fears, but I could see they felt uneasy too. That I still don't understand what I saw. Was it my imagination, or was something there? The shadows of the past seemed to whisper. Maybe the stress of the job was messing with my mind, or maybe it was the building itself playing tricks. I just knew something felt wrong. I couldn't shake that feeling. It wasn't over. Then I heard a whisper calling my name. I turned quickly, but no one was there. An icy fear crept up my spine. I felt like I was being watched. I glanced around, but the hall was empty and still. The hour hung heavily, stretching into something darker than the night. I decided I needed to uncover the truth. Whatever was haunting that hospital, I was determined to face it. The following night, I was back at St. Augustine's, my heart pounding as I clocked in. I had told myself I wouldn't let fear control me. I wanted answers. I approached the nurse's station with a sense of determination, but the unsettling feeling clung to me. Every creak of the floorboards under my feet echoed louder than usual, and I couldn't shake the sensation that I was being followed. After my rounds, I decided to go into the room that had haunted my thoughts all week. I needed to confront whatever was lurking there. The door stood slightly ajar, and I pushed it open, the hinges groaning. The room was just as I had left it, cold and dimly lit, the air thick with something unnameable. I walked inside, my pulse racing. As I scanned the space, my eyes fell on the bed, neatly made but untouched. A small desk displayed a few items, a name tag, a few old photographs. I picked up the name tag. It belonged to a patient named Margaret Hale. The name felt familiar, but I couldn't place it. I set it down, feeling a wave of sadness wash over me. Then I noticed something else, a small, frayed journal lying in the corner. I picked it up, dusting off the cover. The pages were yellowed and brittle, and as I flipped through them, I found entries detailing Margaret's life. The last few entries were disjointed and sad, talking of shadows that moved in the corners of her room, whispers in the night. A chill gripped me. Had this been her experience too? That's when I saw it, a faint outline against the wall, like a shadow shifting, but there was no light to cast it. My breath caught in my throat. I blinked, and it was gone. I felt a rush of cold air sweep past me, making the hairs on my arms stand up. Panic surged. I needed to leave. I backed away slowly, still scanning the room, when I heard a whisper. "Help me!" I froze. The voice, soft and distant, seemed to echo from the very walls. It wasn't just a figment of my imagination, it was a plea. I felt a pull toward the corner of the room, a sensation that I should stay. But my instincts screamed otherwise. I turned and bolted for the door, the journal slipping from my hands. Outside the room, I leaned against the wall, trying to catch my breath. My mind raced. What was happening? I wanted to tell someone, but my colleagues were already dismissing my concerns. And what if they thought I was losing it? I made my way back to the nurse's station, but as I passed another empty room, I felt something, a presence watching me, palpable and unsettling. That's when I noticed the lights flickering over me again. I glanced down the hall, but there was no one in sight. Then everything went dark. I stood alone in total blackness, panic gripping me. I fumbled to find my phone, desperately pushing the button to call for help. With each passing second, my fears grew heavier, and I realized that whatever was in that hospital was not finished with me yet. I stood frozen in the dark, my heart racing. Everything around me was silent, save for the faint thrum of my own pulse. I tightly gripped my phone, praying for just a glimmer of light. The darkness held its breath, and I felt utterly alone. Suddenly, the emergency lights flared to life. The harsh fluorescent glow flooded the corridor, illuminating the peeling paint and flickering overhead lamps. I squinted against the brightness as I scanned my surroundings. Nothing looked out of the ordinary, but I felt that something was still there, lurking in the shadows. After a few seconds, I steadied myself and headed back toward the nurse's station. My mind raced with questions. Who was Margaret Hale? And why did her story feel so deeply tied to my own experience? I couldn't shake the sensation that both of our fates were connected. As I reached the station, my colleague Jenna looked up from her computer screen. "You okay?" she asked, concern etched on her brow. "You look pale." I just had a strange experience in room 212, I started, but then hesitated. Would she believe me? "Not another ghost story," Jenna said, shaking her head with a small laugh. "You know how this place gets during night shifts. Just the shadows playing tricks on you." I forced a smile, but it felt wrong. I swear, it was different. Someone or something, I don't know. I heard a voice. Jenna opened her mouth, ready to dismiss me again, but then her expression shifted. A flicker of something crossed her face. "Wait, did you say 212? That room has a history. A patient died there last year." My stomach lurched. What was her name? Margaret Hale. I could barely breathe as her words sank in. I was about to speak when a loud crash echoed from down the hall. We both jumped. Without thinking, I sprinted toward the noise, my heart pounding again. I needed to see what was happening. The sound led me to the break room, where I found a set of shelves had toppled over, spilling supplies everywhere. I glanced around, expecting to see someone, but found myself alone. An eerie feeling washed over me as I scanned the room. What had caused that? Jenna caught up to me, eyes wide. "What did you see?" I don't know. It came from here, but there's no one around." As we stood in silence, I heard it again. That same soft whisper from before. "Help me!" Jenna's eyes widened in terror as she took a step back. "What was that?" "I think it was Margaret," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Just then, a cold breeze swept through the break room, a chilling presence that sent shivers down my spine. I would have sworn it passed right through me as I shuddered. I turned to Jenna, but she had frozen, her eyes fixed on the corner of the room. "Look," she stammered, pointing. There it was, a shadowy figure standing just at the edge of the light, barely discernible yet distinctly there. My blood ran cold. It was real. I could no longer deny it. But in the next moment, the figure vanished. All that remained was a sense of dread that draped over us like a heavy quilt. I felt panic welling up inside me. We needed to get out of there. I grabbed Jenna's arm, ready to run back to the safety of the nurse's station when suddenly, a loud thump echoed from room 212. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my heart racing. "Yes," she replied, her voice trembling. We exchanged terrified glances, knowing we couldn't ignore it. With shaky breaths, we made our way toward the room together, both of us feeling the weight of the unknown looming behind us. As we reached the door, I hesitated. What awaited us inside? But the answer was already pulling me in. I took a deep breath, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. The room smelled faintly of decay and something else I couldn't name. And that's when I noticed the journal. The one I had dropped before. It lay open on the floor, a single page fluttering in the cold air. The entry that wafted out sent a chill down my spine. "I can't stay here anymore." I reached for it, but a voice echoed in my mind. "Don't." Then the door slammed shut behind us. The door slamming echoed in my ears like thunder. I spun around, looking for a way out. Panic swelled within me. "Jenna!" My voice trembled. She stood frozen near the foot of the bed, wide-eyed. I could tell she was grappling with her fear as much as I was. "What just happened? Why did the door close?" "I don't know, but we need to find a way out." I started pushing against the door, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if something on the other side was restraining it. My mind raced. What was happening? I turned back to the room, scanning for any signs of an escape. The journal lay open on the floor, its pages fluttering as if in some kind of eerie rhythm. The ghostly whisper returned soft and desperate. "Help me." I could feel Jenna's eyes on me, full of fear. "Do you think it's really her?" I don't know. Maybe." The uncertainty was suffocating. I stepped closer to the journal, drawn to it against my better judgment. A part of me wondered if I should read more. That's when I saw it, a small, silver locket glinting from the bedside table. It caught the light from the emergency bulbs, highlighting a faint engraving. Trembling, I approached. "Jenna, look at this." She followed me, her expression shifting to curiosity. "What is it?" "I think it might be hers." I held it up, and as my fingers brushed against its cool surface, a jolt shot through me. Images flooded my mind, visions of a hospital room filled with flowers, a woman's weary smile, and then, darkness. "Are you okay?" Jenna asked, concern etched on her face. That I shook my head, trying to shake off the strange sensations. "No. I feel something. Like I'm connected to her somehow." Then I felt a change in the atmosphere. The temperature dropped, and a deep sense of dread blanketed the room. I took a step back, instinctively bringing the locket closer to my chest. "Something's not right," Jenna whispered, her eyes darting around the dim space. Suddenly, the whisper grew louder, filling the room. "Help me, please." The voice was desperate, pleading. My heart raced as I recalled the entries I had read. What had Margaret experienced in her final moments? I glanced back at the journal. Maybe there's more we need to see. Before I could take a step toward it, a loud thud came from the closet. "Did you hear that?" Jenna gasped, taking a few steps back from the darkened corner. That I nodded, trying to suppress the growing fear. What if there's something in there? Or someone? Jenna shivered at the thought, her eyes wide with fright. Another thud followed, and then the door jerked again. The whimpers of the voice cut through the fear, stronger now. "Help me, get me out." Without thinking, I dashed toward the closet, drawn by an unexplainable urge to confront whatever was there. "I'm going to open it." "Wait!" Jenna yelled, grabbing my arm. "What if it's dangerous?" But I couldn't stop. I swung the door open, and the air seemed to thrum with anticipation. Inside was darkness, and I felt a chilling rush sweep over me. I reached in, ready to face whatever lay there, and that's when everything went dark. My heart pounded in the silence that followed. I blinked, trying to adjust to the sudden dark, but it felt like a heavy blanket had been thrown over my head. I reached out, my hand brushing against something cold and hard. "Are you okay?" Jenna's voice sounded faint, disembodied in the darkness. I couldn't see her, couldn't even tell if she was right beside me. Panic rose again, and I called out, "Jenna. I'm here." She replied, her voice echoing in the void. "What's happening?" I took a deep breath, willing myself to stay calm. "I have no idea. But we need to get back to the light." I stumbled forward, praying to feel the edge of the closet door, but instead, I tripped over something soft, an old blanket, maybe. "What's in here?" Jenna asked, fear lacing her tone. "I don't know," I replied, feeling more lost than ever. I groped around, trying to find a wall or a surface to lead us back. Just then, an unsettling sensation washed over me. It was as if I was being watched. A cold breath grazed my neck, and I froze. "Did you feel that?" I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. "Feel what?" Jenna sounded terrified, and I could hear her stepping back, her footsteps muffled in the darkness. "It's like someone is here." My words hung between us, and in that moment, the whisper returned, clear and chilling. "Help me please get out." Jenna shouted, panic taking over. "We need to get out of here now." Instinct kicked in, and I grabbed her hand. "This way." I darted toward where I thought the door had been, pulling Jenna behind me. It felt like we were wading through murky water, unable to get to the surface. But then the world around us shifted, a sudden flash of light appeared, illuminating the chaos in front of us, and I realized we were still in the closet. "What is going on?" Jenna cried, her eyes wide with fear. The light flickered above us, casting an almost ethereal glow, making everything appear surreal. Glancing around, my heart sank. The closet was filled with scattered hospital gowns and old, dust-coated equipment. A strange smell lingered, something medicinal mixed with decay. I couldn't shake the sinking feeling that we were connected to something far beyond our understanding. "I think we need to leave this room," I said, my voice steadying. "The locket, it must have opened something. We need to figure out what happened to her." Before Jenna could answer, the light flickered again, this time plunging us back into darkness. I gripped her hand tightly as the walls seemed to close in. "Find the door," she urged, her voice tinged with urgency. That I strained my ears, hearing the whispers intensify, a cacophony overlapping one another. "Help me. Get me out. Help me. Where is it coming from?" I shouted as my heart raced faster. Was it from the journal? Then, out of the silence, a sound pierced the air, a loud, unmistakable crash. Something shattered nearby, and an icy breeze swept through the closet. "We're not alone," Jenna breathed. And just like that, the darkness split open again, revealing a figure, a shadow darting past the edge of our vision. I froze, my blood running cold. "Who's there?" I called, but received no answer, only the echoing of our breaths and the faint, haunting whisper that had brought us here. My pulse raced as I turned toward it, instinctively pulling Jenna closer. Whatever was happening was far more than I had bargained for. Would the truth set us free, or would it lead us deeper into this terrifying mystery? I squinted, trying to adjust to the form I'd just seen move. The darkness felt alive, pulsating with energy, and I could hear my own breath quickening in response. "Did you see that?" I whispered. "See what?" Jenna's voice trembled. "What's happening?" I shook my head, unsure. I think I hesitated, the whisper still echoing in my ears. "I think something is trapped here. We need to move." We turned, and I could barely make out the outline of the closet door just in front of us. With a deep breath, I pushed against it. The door creaked, resisting as if it had grown comfortable in its stillness. Jenna pulled at my arm, urgency coursing through her voice. "Open it. We can't stay here." I grabbed the handle again and yanked it hard. The door swung open, spilling a wash of light into the dark closet. My heart surged as I stepped out, dragging Jenna with me. As we stumbled into the room, I froze again, disoriented. We were in a small, sterile hospital room. White tiles shone under the fluorescent lights, and the scent of antiseptic filled the air. A bed sat empty against the far wall, sheets pulled tight. I didn't remember how we had gotten here. "What is this place?" Jenna whispered, looking around as if expecting the shadows to leap out at us. That I glanced back at the closet, which looked ordinary now, its unsettling aura seemingly contained. "I don't know, but I feel like we're supposed to find something. Something important." An eerie quiet fell around us, but then, from the corner of my eye, I saw it. A small notebook lay on the bedside table. I stepped toward it, hesitant, but curiosity pulled me in. "Wait." Jenna grabbed my shoulder. "What if it's dangerous?" "I have to know," I replied, reaching for it. It felt heavier than I expected, as if it carried secrets within its pages. I opened it and began flipping through. The handwriting was frantic, each line filled with scrawled notes, half-torn pages revealing fragmented thoughts. "Help me. They're coming for me. What does it say?" Jenna leaned in closer, her eyes wide with fear as she scanned the words. "Someone was trying to escape this place." My voice dropped to a whisper. "But escape from what?" My fingers brushed over a date that sent chills down my spine. It was marked 2 weeks prior. Just then, the lights flickered above again, and the temperature dropped. I felt a cold breath sweep past me, deeper than fear. This was the essence of despair. "Get back!" I shouted, pulling Jenna behind me. The whispers returned, louder now, intertwining with our thoughts. "Help me get out." I swung around, scanning the room for any sign of danger. That's when I saw it, a reflection in the glass of a nearby cabinet. A figure stood behind me, almost translucent, eyes filled with anguish. Panic surged through me. "Jenna!" I gasped, but when I turned back, the space was empty again. Everything felt suffocating. "We need to leave, now," I yelled, rushing toward the door. That chilling look from the figure haunted me. What had I just seen? As I dashed toward the exit, Jenna's voice broke through my thoughts. "Wait. What about that locket?" I hesitated, feeling its weight against my chest. I turned to her, my throat dry. "Maybe it's the key. But what if it's tied to all this?" The door behind us slammed shut, and the whispers crescendoed into a deafening roar. Our eyes locked, realization washed over us. There was no turning back. We had to confront whatever lay ahead, and I just hoped the truth wouldn't be our end. The door was solid, but I pushed against it anyway, desperate to escape the unsettling atmosphere that surrounded us. It rattled without budging. I took a step back. Why won't it open? Jenna's face was pale. "Maybe we're not supposed to leave. What if something out there is worse?" A flicker of doubt crossed my mind, but I shook it off. I moved back to the notebook and flipped through the pages again, feeling a pull towards the frantic script. There had to be more clues here. There's something about this place. Something that needs to be uncovered. Before Jenna could respond, I felt an electric charge fill the space. The lights flickered wildly again. A sudden banging echoed from the other side of the door, like fists pounding. We both jumped, hearts racing. What was that? Jenna whispered, eyes darting between the door and the notebook. I don't know. My words felt hollow against the chaos. But we need to. Suddenly, a whimper broke through the noise. It wasn't from Jenna or me. It was soft and sorrowful, coming from somewhere outside the room. My chest tightened, and I felt the locket press against my body, heavy with meaning. We exchanged glances, an unspoken agreement passing between us. Slowly, I approached the door again, pressing my ear against it. The whimper turned into a clear voice, calling out. "Help me please, someone else out there," I said, pulling back abruptly. "What if they're in trouble? What if it's a trap?" Jenna countered, her eyes wide. Fear rippled through her voice. I nodded. "But what if it isn't?" I took a deep breath and grasped the handle, ready to turn it. The locket felt like it was burning against my skin, urging me forward. "We should see." "Don't you dare," Jenna said, grabbing my wrist. "What if this is a trick? We can't risk it." But before I could reply, the door shook violently. Something slammed against it from the other side, causing us to stumble back. My heart raced as I felt a pulse of energy course through the air, alive with tension. "Okay, we need to find another way out," I said, backing away. But Jenna's eyes were glued to the door. "Wait," she whispered. "What if we move the bed? Maybe there's something under it." "The bed?" I glanced at it, hesitating. It seemed like an attempt at a solution born from desperation. I nodded. "Let us do it, quick." We rushed to the bed, pushing it aside. Dust and grime filled the air, and beneath it lay an old metal box. My breath hitched as I crouched to examine it. It was locked but worn, metal edges rusted. Maybe this could have answers. Or something worse. Jenna's voice quivered, but she knelt next to me. "Do you think it's connected?" "I don't know, but we can't leave it here." I felt a knot of determination tighten in my chest. "We have to open it." I fumbled around for something to pry it open when I heard it again, the voice. Now more urgent. "Help me come back." My fingers froze on the box. A chilling thought struck me. What if this voice belonged to the figure I'd seen before? I looked at Jenna. "If we don't help, what happens?" Her eyes glistened with uncertainty, but she nodded. "Okay, let us do this." I shifted my focus back to the box, adrenaline pumping through me. I had to know what was inside. I just prayed it wasn't too late. With one final heave, the box opened, revealing an array of old photographs scattered inside. My heart raced, something told me these images held the key to understanding this terrifying mystery. But that's when I saw it, a familiar face looking back at me, chilling my blood. I stumbled back. "No, it can't be." Jenna grabbed my shoulder. "What is it?" I stammered, throat tight. It's someone I know." And in that moment, everything went dark. I woke up gasping, heart pounding. The little room was dim, the flickering lights casting eerie shadows. Jenna was at my side, a look of concern etched on her face. "Are you okay? What happened?" I rasped, trying to piece together the fragments of my memory. I remembered the photographs and that familiar face. "Nothing," Jenna said, her voice shaking. "You just blacked out. I thought you were gone." "Gone?" The word hung heavily in the air. I shook my head, still trying to shake off the lingering shock. "What did I see?" Jenna picked up a photo that had slipped from the box. "This one. Looks like someone you know." I took it from her, staring at the face. It was an old friend, someone I'd lost touch with. A chill slithered down my spine. How was he here? I felt dizzy. Where did these come from? I don't know. "We shouldn't be here," Jenna whispered, glancing toward the door that still held the ominous pounding of something or someone on the other side. "No." I clenched my fists. "We need to understand what this means. If he is in danger, then we have to find him." "But what if this is part of it?" Jenna asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if whatever trapped us here is connected to him?" I pondered her words. It was hard to ignore the feeling of dread growing inside me. I can't just sit here and do nothing. We can't ignore the voice. Jenna nodded uncertainly, and I moved away from her, heading towards the mess of photographs. There was a strange energy in the room, one that felt familiar yet unsettling. I started flipping through the images scattered on the floor. Faces peered back at me, some smiling, others with expressions that seemed to scream for help. "Look at this one," I said, lifting another photo. It showed a group of 5 people at a party, laughter frozen in time. What if they're all connected? What if they're tied to whatever happened here? Jenna looked over my shoulder, her brows knitting together in concentration as she examined the faces. "They don't look familiar to me," but she froze mid-sentence, staring at one particular figure. "Wait, this one." Her fingers trembled as she pointed. "I recognize him. He was in the news a while back. Missing." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. The pieces were coming together, but what did they mean? Missing? How many of them are? Jenna scanned the photos, dread pooling in her eyes. "I don't know, but what if they're all missing?" Just then, the lights flickered again and dimmed. The booming sound of the door shaking heightened, and the whimpering voice returned, now mingling with panicked cries. "Help! Please! Don't leave!" I jolted at the urgency in the voice. What if this isn't just a game? What if something terrible is happening to them? "We have to do something!" Jenna exclaimed, fear pressing her words thick in the air. Before I could respond, I felt the room shift, a heaviness descending as if the walls themselves were closing in. "Hold on," I said, half to reassure her and half to center myself. And that's when an icy breath brushed against the back of my neck that I turned, heart racing, but there was nothing there, just the shadows dancing in the fading light. "We need to get out of here now," I said, panic rising, but as I reached for the doorknob, the voice called out again, more desperate, "Please come back for me." A cold realization gripped me. I wasn't just dealing with lost souls. I was being drawn into something far darker. What if we can't escape? Jenna whispered, her voice wavering. I didn't answer her, because I didn't know. But that thought echoed louder than the whimpering voice that echoed through the room. I didn't waste another moment. I flung the door open, but the hallway on the other side felt different, darker, more ominous. The pounding stopped, leaving only an unsettling silence. I looked back at Jenna, her eyes wide with fear, but determination filled my chest. "We can't just leave him." "Are you sure?" Jenna hesitated, glancing over her shoulder. "What if we regret this?" "We might regret it if we don't try." Still buzzing with adrenaline, I stepped into the hallway and motioned for her to follow. As we moved away from the small room, I felt the temperature plummet. The walls felt like they were closing in. Each breath was a visible fog in the air. I could almost see the outlines of shapes lingering in the corners, just beyond the reach of the flickering lights. I pressed on, keeping my focus ahead. The hallway was lined with doors, each seeming to beckon us. "Which way do we go?" Jenna whispered, her voice tremulous. "There has to be something," I said, trying to keep it together. "This place has to have a way out or, at the very least, information." As I reached for a doorknob, a sudden crash echoed from one of the rooms. We both jumped. My heart raced even faster, making me question my choices. What was that? Jenna's eyes darted nervously. "I don't know, but we have to find out." I turned and approached the nearest door. Gripping the handle, I twisted it, but it wouldn't budge. "Locked," I muttered, trying to shake it free. "Maybe we should go back," Jenna suggested, her voice trembling. "No." I felt a surge of defiance. "We have to keep going." I moved down the hallway, stopping at another door. This one was unlatched. I pushed it open, a strange musty smell wafting out to greet me. The room was dark, save for a single flickering bulb in the corner. As I stepped inside, the light revealed scattered papers strewn haphazardly across the floor. "Look at this," I said, picking up one of the pages. It was covered in hastily scribbled notes, messages that looked like they'd been scrawled in a frenzy. They're talking about the missing people and showing pictures. Jenna leaned in closer, her fingers brushing the edges of the pages. That's them, she whispered, pointing. And these notes, do you think they were trying to reach out? Before I could respond, I heard that voice again, more desperate than ever. You have to save me. Please. It echoed through the hall, sending a shiver down my spine. It's coming from further down, I said, heart racing with a mix of fear and resolve. Do you really want to go towards it? Jenna asked, biting her lip. Yes. Whatever it is, it's connected to everything, I can feel it. I didn't have time to hesitate. With renewed determination, I stepped back into the corridor. Then the world went dark. The lights flickered off completely, swallowing us in deep shadows. Panic gripped me. Jenna! I called out, reaching out into the void. Stay close. I'm here, she breathed, her voice barely a whisper. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I felt my way back towards the wall, trying to catch my breath, when suddenly I froze. Something shifted behind me. Before I could turn around, a low growl echoed in the darkness. It came from far too close. What was that? Jenna whispered, her fear palpable. I didn't want to find out, but my feet felt glued to the floor. There was no backing out now. I had to face whatever waited in the shadows, or this would be the end of us both. I felt the dread weigh heavy in the dark, a suffocating presence wrapping around me like a shroud. The growl came again, deeper and resonating with a malice that sent ice through my veins. Stay close, I whispered, my voice trembling as I reached out for Jenna. The warmth of her hand felt like my lifeline against the encroaching terror. With cautious steps, I maneuvered through the gloom, every rustle amplifying my heartbeat. The growling faded, replaced by that plaintive voice, echoing through the void, "Help me please," it gouged into my mind, pulling me forward as if it knew my heart's weakness. I had to find the source behind the whispers and the growl, unearth the truth that lingered in the dark. As I moved deeper into the hall, the darkness began to shift. Shadows flickered before me, coalescing into vague forms I struggled to decipher. The air felt thicker, harder to breathe, as if charged with unanswered questions. I halted when I felt Jenna's grip tighten. I don't like this," she murmured. "What if we're walking into a trap?" "I think we're already trapped," I replied, my voice barely audible above the thrum in my ears. "But we have to know." With that steely resolve buoyed by fear, I pressed on. Then I felt a rush of cold air, sharp and biting, sweeping past me and toward an unmarked door at the end of the hall. The whispers grew louder, frantic now. "Help me, get me out." It was a direct command, a plea wrapped in desperation that ignited something inside me. "This is it," I said, gesturing towards the door. I hesitated only for a moment as I reached for the knob. It felt as if an electric current pulsed through it, tingling against my palm. With a swift motion, I twisted the handle, pushing the door open. Against the creaking sound, it made an agonizing moan that reminded me of long-buried memories, like a warning from the dead. The room beyond was smaller than I expected, heavily shadowed with only a flicker of light from a window I couldn't see. Dust motes danced in the beam, but it felt like capturing fleeting moments that dipped in and out of existence. "We're not alone," Jenna whispered, edging closer to me. In the center of the room stood an old rocking chair, swaying gently back and forth, almost as if someone had just vacated it. The sight sent a shiver spiraling through my bones. I stepped further inside, compelled to investigate, as Jenna fidgeted beside me, her anxiety palpable. When I noticed the scattered remnants of photographs strewn across the floor, faces peering up at me, familiar, yet ghostly. I picked one up and froze. It was the same group from earlier, now with discernible expressions of despair that felt almost tangible, as if they were aware of my gaze. "Look at these," I murmured, showing it to Jenna. "What if these people are all connected?" I glanced further, recognizing a figure among them, a person I had met years ago. "They're all missing. How did we end up in their web?" Tension coiled through the room, whispering promises of revelations wrapped in darkness. The voices, Jenna said, her breath hitching. They're all calling out for help. Suddenly, the light flickered violently above us, and the whispers crescendoed into a cacophony of cries. I winced, stepping back, but the sound seemed to anchor me, flooding my senses. I couldn't tear myself away. We have to. Before I could finish, the room trembled, shadows billowed from the corners like dark smoke swirling around us. The chill returned, a bone-deep cold that pressed into my skin. I stumbled, the world tilting as unseen forces raged. Then, with a loud crash, the rocking chair tipped over, and the noise shattered the night like glass breaking. I spun around, adrenaline surging, propelling us toward the door. We had to get out. This place was a conduit of something unholy. Pushing past Jenna, I yanked the door open again, and it was different this time. The hallway had twisted into an endless labyrinth of dark rooms and flickering lights, the cries amplifying, echoing my own panic. This way! I shouted, but I had no idea where I was going. Jenna followed instinctively as we dashed through endless corridors, racing against the mounting chaos around us. I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows were watching, observing our every move. Each door we passed echoed the whispers, a reminder of those trapped, those who had been lost. Finally, we stumbled upon a large door at the end of a corridor, embossed with ominous markings. What do you think is in there? Jenna gasped behind me. I don't know, I stammered. But maybe there's a way out. Or an answer. Breathless, I turned to push the door open, light spilling into the dark hallway. But it felt wrong. Inside isn't the salvation we sought, it could lead to our demise. My heart raced as the whispers cracked through the sunlight, demanding my attention, echoing from within the door. I hesitated, feeling the weight of unseen eyes, those who had tasted suffering that went beyond my comprehension. At that moment, I knew I had to make a choice. Could I move forward into the light, into the chaos, or retreat into the unknown of the hallway behind me? My heart raced with uncertainty as I clutched the locket tightly, knowing it was a key to something, but not understanding what. The final echo of Margaret's plea filled the air. I took a deep breath, stepping through the door, knowing that whatever lay ahead might change everything. The past would either be my salvation or my undoing, threading my fate deeper into the fabric of this haunted place. And as the door closed behind me, sealing my choice, I understood that I might never know the truth.